Okay. I think we're are we live, Alex Gray?
It says so, Darren. It says so. It says we're 10 seconds in. We are 10 seconds in. So hopefully we'll give it a few minutes, let people come in and join. We're very punctual is one of those things, which I think is a good trait to have, by the way.
It absolutely is. No, absolutely is. It's always good to be punctual. So how are you?
I am very well, thank you. I am very well. We're a couple of thousand miles apart. I am here in Dubai. We've got the national holiday weekend. What that means is we've got Monday, so today and tomorrow off school, back in on Wednesday. And then, as I was telling you off air, we break up on Friday for Christmas. They extended our winter break. So we now have a 4-week winter break, which I'm not complaining about, by the way.
Nice.
But it's a nice time of year to be around here. If you remember your days in the Middle East.
Yes. Yeah, no, I do actually. I really do. And particularly North Yorkshire, I kind of miss them. If you've joined us, put a comment in the stream so we can see where you're coming from. And so you know, I'm not being like deliberately badly ADHD distracted, but I've just got this kind of creature that's just arrived in our life. This is Max. He's 3-month-old Labrador puppy, and he's just basically destroying the office around me. So if I look a bit distracted, that's why. Because he's kind of lively. Right, look, let's get started. So we're not getting anyone coming through the comments. I'm hoping that actually there are people.
There's a few. There's got John. We've got Chris. We've got people there. Do you see a count? Do you have a count on yours?
No, I don't actually. I don't see it. I'm not seeing anything at the moment for some reason. I am. My mistake. There we are. I can see them. So it's fun. That's fantastic. Jackie's arrived from Malton College. As long as Jackie's here, we're okay, because if Jackie's here, other people are here as well. There we are. Look, Jackie's here and Kieran's here from Amsterdam. That's fantastic. Well, look, amazing. We are here because we are both vibe coding obsessives.
But we don't use that. We don't want to use that term, though, do we? Because we kind of said
we call flow. We call it. Well, actually, you call it flow coding, which is so much cooler. But we're flow coding obsessives, and this is Flow Coders Anonymous. So you're in a safe place. So look, do you want to kind of maybe start, Alex, by telling us a bit about your flow coding journey to date? Because I just think it's so cool what you're currently doing, and I'm going to do the same, and then we'll share what we're working on and give you loads and loads of tips.
Yeah, and so let's probably break down why I paused at Darren and called it flow coding, not vibe coding. And the reason is, I think within an education setting, this is only my perspective, by the way, is that with a flow, and we talk about flow state, but it has a level of like rules and regiments and tasks and things that we need to do sequentially. Like you go with the flow. And I think there's why we're using that and why we kind of went with that term is because what we're going to show you tonight, what we're going to talk about, does have a lot to do with structure and planning and preparation. In fact, when I was a wee bit younger, because I'm still not that old now.
When you were a lad.
When I was a lad and I played rugby with a lot of guys who were in the British Army. And I was very lucky to tour and travel around the world with these guys. And one of the things I picked up from them from the army was proper preparation and planning prevents poor performance.
Piss poor performance. You missed the swear. They actually.
The
whole phrase.
Yeah, there's 7 Ps, but I was trying to keep it PG-13 almost. But there are 7 Ps. Proper preparation and planning prevents piss poor performance. And I think that kind of resonates with what we want when you are talking about this in school settings, is that flow leads to that. Whereas vibe is like, it's just on a feel. It's just on a hunch. It doesn't have probably the articulation and structure and strategy needed to get something good. So there's my first part, why it's called flow coding. And hopefully that resonates. Yeah, flow coding is definitely cooler versus vibe coding. Thank you, Sanya. I appreciate that. So that's kind of the why, as it were, we've got to this. But from my journey, that you're going to very kindly start me off with, is when AI Studio, and I'm going to show this. I've got this set up. We'll get it to that in a little bit. But from AI Studio, and we had a conversation, didn't we, at the start? We run a podcast. For those of you who don't know, I run a podcast called The International Classroom, and I had Darren on at the start of this season. So what was probably September time.
Yeah.
And that was what set me off. And I just refer to you as the Obi-Wan for this. But that was what just set me off in terms of looking at what we call blocks. And Darren uses this term blocks. And looking at it now in schools, when you go to somewhere, it's like, where's a block? Where is something that's blocking?
Yeah.
from achieving something. And that could be a simple case of, oh, I wish there was an app. I wish there was a website. I wish there was something that did this. And I was seeing more and more of that in my lessons. And I was just like, right, let's just have a go. And I started putting in the sentences, so prompting that, and it was building stuff that was good. But I was coming back and forward a little bit. And obviously we had more and more conversations about this. And I think my use of AI shifted then from prompting to contexting. I don't think that's a real word to describe it, but context engineering.
Yeah.
And so what I've been able to do with that is create a whole host of just simplified, let's say, apps or platforms that I can share with my students to use in class, like without having to necessarily log in, without asking for personalized information. So trying to keep it all very safe in that respect. So no data sharing, but just something they can use. That some of them do contain AI, and some of them are just platforms, websites. So we built a physics simulator. That was pretty cool. So we were doing about forces, and obviously some of the things we can test, but some of them like needed further visual and needed more data and needed more structure. And so things like that were really, really good for them. And I've been playing around with the different types of assessments. I think that's one thing for educators at the moment that's on the forefront is, written assessment is one thing, but can we do like Vivas, can we do auditory? And that's what I want to show tonight when I go through mine.
Awesome. I can't wait, actually. It's really, really cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit more. I'm not sure Obi-Wan, to be honest with you. I mean, I think we all of us are basically making it up as we go along. And I spend most of my time shouting and writing in shouty capitals to Claude Code because it doesn't do what I want it to do. So I think we're all kind of. But I like the notion of flow. And I mean, I've been doing maybe just over a year, I suppose. I was probably October, November last year, and I started with Claude Artifact, and then I got into AI Studio. And then I moved into Claude Code, and now I'm a Claude Code evangelist because I think it's the best tool. But I'm going to show I will show a lot this afternoon, and it will. But this is being recorded, so you will have a copy of the recording. So there will be some stuff that you can kind of look through at your leisure, because there'll be quite a lot of stuff going on. But you don't want to hear us banging on talking about ourselves. It's just a bit boring. So, Alex? Do you want to maybe, I tell you what, show us what you've actually built. It's actually super, super cool. So
right. This is what I've just, let me share the screen and I'll pull it up for you. It should be this one. So you should be able to see I'm hoping I'm moving between.
We can see Gemini at the moment.
So that's the video. We need to be on the other one. So that's what I'm going to talk through about what we're doing. But if you go to the other screen sharing one.
Hang on.
You're in control, Darren. This is it. You're in control, Darren. There we go.
Dangerous.
So what I have spent probably the last 30 hours, maybe slightly more, in terms of putting together is we were talking about blocks. And obviously for me, I'm an international educator like most people who would be on this as well. And tutoring is one of those parts where I see a lot of block coming in that it's difficult to get organized. It's difficult to keep track of things. And so I had a problem and I was like, well, can I build a solution for this? And I came up with Duxer. And Duxer is, I think, derived from Dux, which is to do with guiding and facilitating. And I've pieced together what is a very simple, like, dashboard. There's no AI in this. It allows you to schedule your sessions. So you can do it from a weekly or monthly. So what you can do is you can take a student that you might have. So I've put my own daughter in, time, date, place. If you've got a meeting Zoom link, the topic, any additional notes, and it's whether it's reoccurring or not. And then you can do the same with adding students. So you can keep a track of all your students. So again, I've got one in there. You can change the currency dependent on if you're teaching kids, let's say in the UAE, the UK, the US, Singapore, wherever it may be. I've got some makeshift details in there that are kind of from mine. And then you've got a finance side of things. So you can create invoices. And what we've done with this is it's automated. So in your settings, you can go and you can choose notifications. So you can send email reminders, how frequently they go. And the aim is to then try and bring in things like SMS automation, but it's a bit tricky. Obviously, it's a pipe dream potentially. But the aim is to keeping it very, very simple and and it also connects in with your WhatsApp. So you can connect it to your WhatsApp. It just gives you the text and you just send it. So everything's copied and pasted over from there. So that's what I've actually built on my own personal side of things. So yeah,
and you built it because you needed something like this. Is that right? Because you're like, there's nothing like it, so I'm just going to build my own.
Yeah, there's only one thing I could find, and that was over in the America and Canada. So yeah, I couldn't, for what I wanted and the cost of it. And yeah, so I was like, right, I'll build it. I've got some beta testers out there using it for me. So far, so good. But it is always one of those, you know yourself, it's got a few issues, a few glitches here and there, and that's why we test. But my aim is to then be able to provide this. I think it will go, first 5 users will be free, and then if you want to use it, then after 5 students, should I say, it's like, I think it was like $12 a month, which is 20% of what we charge for tutoring. It's like 40 dirhams for the month. So, cool. So that's the plan.
Yeah. I mean, a few comments coming through. Difference between flow coding and vibe coding. But flow coding's cooler, just basically.
Cooler. Does what it says on the tin. You kind of just
interesting. If you look at where vibe coding comes from, it's Andre Carpathy back in February this year. Actually, it just shows how quickly things go on. And he basically talk about how vibe coding is kind of going with the vibe, not ever looking at the code. But actually, when you read this through, he's been quite dismissive of it. He's been quite, you know, it's not really, you don't take it seriously. It's just for a bit of a laugh. And I think both Alex and I over the last sort of 6 to 12 months have realized that if you want to do it seriously, then you need to actually approach it in a serious way. So hence the idea of vibe coding kind of being pushed aside and Alex coining flow coding, which is just so much cooler. I mean, in terms of what I've been working on, so I've been building Edfolio over the last few months. And essentially what Edfolio is an application which enables you to sort of intelligently to write notes and then intelligently search the notes. So if you've got this kind of, you know, notes bit in the middle here, and you can add lots of different sorts of notes, and you can kind of query those notes and so on and so forth. And then you've got like a contents thing here and a little tasks bar here. But where I'm quite pleased with the way it works is because I can actually intelligently query just a note. I can query the entire folder. I can query the entire folio. So that's like a collection of folders, or I can actually query the entire site. So an example might be if I've got a folder of student work and some assessment objectives, I could potentially start to query those notes and actually give feedback and assessment on those notes. So, you know, you've got some quite interesting ideas here, the way in which we can start to, you know, create these kind of intelligent notes apps. It has encryption, you know, you can encrypt it. So you can encrypt it on the client side. So basically you encrypt a note and the back end can't read the note. So it kind of keeps all of your notes completely safe and secure. And there's things like sharing options where I can potentially, you know, share, view or edit. So you know, people can work on the same note at the same time. So that's kind of where I've been coming from with mine. I mean, I'm building a number of different. I've usually got about 5 things going at the same time, which is probably not a very good idea. I mean, I'm not very good multitasker, but I seem to often be working with 5 projects at the same time. But the Edfolio is the one that I've been working on the most consistently. And I guess the reason we wanted to kind of start by sharing the stuff that we've been working on is that you know, I'm an English teacher. I am an English teacher. You know, I can't code. But what I've done, and also what Alex Young Skywalker here has done, is learn a technique, learn a system, learn a process. Very, very rigorous process. And if you stick to the process, you can do some amazing things. If you go off the process, the whole thing goes tits up. And it goes tits up very quickly. And it can be very destructively going tits up as well. I mean, AI can completely screw your entire code base up. So you've got to be super, super careful. And I'm not in my life, I'm all over the place. But when I'm coding, I am an absolute ninja. And we're going to talk about that today. So do you want to, Alice, do you want to maybe start by maybe talking, because we both talked about AI Studio. Yeah. And it would be great to maybe to get a sense as to what do I need to add anything?
I've got the video. The video is there. I've got
it. Right. Yeah.
If you just yeah, and I can pause it from there. So I am very much a Blue Peter person, for those of you who are old enough to know that, with here's one I've made earlier, because obviously we've been on enough of these different things to know, hey, I'm just going to do it live, and for all intents and purposes the internet goes down or it doesn't work exactly how you want it to be. So I went and built this just earlier. And I'll talk through the timings of it and everything that comes from that. And I've paused it on this point is because when Darren and I are talking about structure and we're talking about context and all this, it comes from, and Darren found this, and it's out there, it's called the BMAD method. And I've taken this because it's quite industrious, as it were, and it's quite intense. But I've taken it and just made a light version of it for this evening. So, ooh, and I know I've tried, and what I'll do by the end of it is I've got like a one-stop prompt just to help get you started, and I'll share that into the chat, or I'll put it somewhere that we've got access to, and you can have a go at it. But like it says, like the idea is in BMAD, we've got background mechanics, aesthetic, and then development. So the idea of this is that you're going to put this prompt into your platform, and it's going to start asking you questions back. So based on the information or the types of things that you say you want to do with it, it's going to start giving you information back. So I gave it the concept, and the one I've been working on is about sort of AI Socratic assessor. So in my classroom, I'm like, look, I'm looking at ways to move away from written assessments and written types of information of how we're checking students' understanding. So one of the things I want to do is be able to create a platform or an app or something along those lines where students can have conversations. It transcribes information, it's asking them questions, and it then gives feedback out. So I used the BMAD Light, started setting this up. So as you can see from there, it has the platform I've given it. So, and then obviously it goes through each part, and I've sped this up in certain parts as well, because obviously you don't want to see all the typing and whatnot, but it does take a couple of minutes. It does take a little bit of your time. And I think that's one of the things that starts to put people off. So we kind of went through the first phase of AI and we went, look, I want instant, I want microwave dinner, hot pot, pot noodle type of thing. It needed to be very, very quick. Whereas context isn't about how well we phrase things. It's about the information we give prior to pressing the return button. I think that's something to be really key with. So I gave it this information. It starts to piece together then like who it's for, with the mechanics of the setup or architecture we start to talk about, and then the UX and UI, which is very much then to do with the aesthetics, the feel, how it works, how it pieces itself together. So again, it came back with a few more questions for me. And again, I gave it the answers in terms of how I want. And one of the key things I would probably say, if I'm just going to pause there, is that what you'll see I've written here is I've said slice this into vertical components. And Darren will attest to this and probably go more into it. But one of the things we get from when we're arranging and when we're looking to set something up is we want very clear and precise to-dos. We might call them epics, you might call them stories, but it's very much a concise to-do list. And you can sometimes get it sliced horizontally. So it's do this, then go on to this and onto this one, and it kind of flows downwards. And other times it takes all the pieces of information and you can go vertically. So it does a little bit of everything, then a little bit of everything, and a little bit of everything. And I've kind of played around with it. And for me, and how I like to work, I prefer the vertical side. So I always ask it to arrange things vertically when it works, because I just find a little bit of everything. I can check it, make sure it's connected and working together, and then move forward. But again, it's one of those things that trial and error, like see what works for you and everything from there. So what you see from this then is I start to get this very kind of detailed outline of how it's going to work, how it's going to piece together, and everything else from there. And then what I've done, or the other part from this, is you start to see something called a PRD. And Darren will go more into that, I'm sure, as well when we talk about it.
I will.
But I have that. I've talked then about architecture, and you can start to see just the detailed nature of this, what it's kind of laying out as a path to follow, as it were. So we weren't messing around when we talked about proper preparation and planning, because it really does make a massive difference. And I'm going to show you that. And I've kind of done 2 examples in the video. So what we'll get to in a second as we move past this is I'm going to take this information, but I'm going to start to use it in AI Studio. And I think someone asked me the other day in terms of platforms to use, and I say, look, you can use Canva, but here's AI Studio. And now with Gemini 3 connected, you've got different examples you can go and have a look at. So it can help you with, it doesn't have to be just creating apps. It can be making landing pages. It can be websites. It can be functional apps, you know, and there's some examples there that you can look through and get ideas from and get help with. There's quick starts just in case. So, you know, in terms of helping and learning, it's a really, really useful site that does provide information, that does provide different ideas. So what I'm going to do with it, or what I did with it, is I'm just going to say to it, like a prompt, like I used to do, is I'm going to say, right, can you do this? And then I'm going to choose along the bottom there the different AI superpowers, it calls them, but they are the different types of AIs you can bring in from Gemini to the app. So because I want to do a voice-based one, I've had a look through, I know I want to start to pick and choose ones that connect with that. So here is my very simple kind of prompt. Build me an app called AI Socratic Examiner. The AI replaces traditional tests with an adaptive oral style reasoning. And I'm going along and I'm checking off the different AI pieces that I want within that app. So I want it to be able to transcribe, I want it to be able to speak back to me, I want it to be able to obviously have this understanding side. So I picked out 4, and you can see them all selected there. And I just go and click build. Now I've sped this up, but the whole process that I've got as my screen recording, I think it took about 4 minutes. That was all. 4 minutes. You can see it just along the side there in the green, going very, very quickly how it does, but about 4 minutes. And the outcome of that is what you'll see just up here, hopefully, in a few minutes. Here we go as it loads. So it asks me, do I want my microphone on? And here it comes. So it looks very nice. The aesthetics of it is very nice. It asks me about the topic that I want to be examined in, and then the difficulty level. So for just a very, very simple wording, like, was absolutely fine. So I'm going to say, like, I want it to do about particle models. I want it on a beginner level, and then I can choose how I want the examiner to interact with me. So you'll see those different things there. So this is just from a text base, by the way, as you saw earlier. This is the type of output. So if you're even wondering where to start from text, from prompting, this is what it came out with. This is what it looks like. Now, here's the thing. If I pause on there, it didn't work first time round.
No,
and that's no, it doesn't. And I think that's the key thing to also talk about, is that you are going to have to go back and forward. And AI Studio is great because you can just talk to it. It can detect errors and help fix them and back and forward. And within about 2 or 3, yeah, it was working. It was absolutely fine. So just be mindful of that. If you kind of go in there and go, it's never going to work first time. Never, ever works first time.
No.
So that's what it looks like for the simple prompt from there. And then what I did is, just to give it a comparison, is I then went and built it again, but I took all the context information. So what I wanted it to look like from an architecture, from the required development stage, and then also into the UX and UI side of things. And you can see there's a massive amount of text. It's very, very different in terms of how much I'm giving it. But also I'm just going to pick out the same AI apps that I want to embed with it as well.
Oh, that's clever. So you took the output from that BMAD Light method and you stuck it into. That's actually really smart. I like that. I'm going to play with that later. It's a really good idea, because I'm really late when it comes to prompting AI Studio. I'm like, build me this. That's really good.
And you'll see, like, there's not a massive, well, when you'll see it at the start in terms of aesthetics and different things, and this is why you trial and play around and what you like with it. But the back end of it, in terms of how it worked and the amount of time it took to fix, because again, you'll see in a second, like, it didn't work first time round, and it looks slightly different. Like, again, the box is there slightly different. And again, you play around with that. But just the back end in terms of what I've got. Now, I apologize for this. Like, I had my mic connected when I was in my screen recording. I didn't pick up any of the sound. But you can see here, as I've speeded up slightly, that it's picking up my microphone in the green. I'm speaking to it. It comes back to me, asks me a question. I go back to it. So, you know, you can see some of the things it's talking about. And I'm a scientist as well by trade. So I'm a biologist, but key stage 3 science, particle model, straightforward. And I gave it some right answers. I gave it some wrong answers, because it's always good to test it with yourself first. I think that's the one that you can really want to do from there. And so from my side, like, going back and forward with it, you'd probably have to iterate it. You'd have to go through and go, you know what, this, you're giving me too much of the answer. And that's what it did. It gave me too much. If I said I don't know, and again, it's just that back and forward with it. And one of the things that probably stuck with this is because I asked for the API or the live API, that's what messed it up a little bit. So if you take those things out, but this was the most impressive thing. I didn't have to ask it. I didn't ask it for this. This is all came from the original structure. Me being happy with the structure is again gave me the session report. So again, this is the sticking part where we start talking about, well, how do I know who it belongs to? Well, I don't. This is a test, and obviously with student data, and obviously being very mindful of GDPR or where you are in the world, and anything else. If you wanted to take this slightly further, and again, we'll talk about this as we move through it, then there are ways in which you can authenticate safely using auth, using Google, depending on the school you've got, and where you're at in using it. But that obviously the next sort of provocation and ideation that goes with it is something to be thinking about. But one of the things I also think that stops people from this is then when it comes to, and you can see me at the top, hey, how do I actually share this? How do I do anything with it? Because most people, you can share the Google AI and you're connected, they can come around and mess around with it. But if they damage it, it's damaged on both ends. Well, how do I deploy it? That was always the tricky part. What do I have to do to make this a live URL? And so you have a couple of options, and probably the easiest one is you putting it into the Google Cloud. And all that's doing is it is basically hosting it for you. And what you need to be aware of is I've got 4 different AI components in this. And if you're doing it through your school, and some of you might be on a Google Workspace for education or personal, they are running like $300 for test for 90 days. I think it might be slightly, but these are going to start to rack up bills, and they can do it very, very quickly. And don't get me wrong, the cloud is great. It will allow you to have a huge amount of space and people on and using it for free still, but it is going to want a credit card off you to start with. And I think that's one of the things that puts people off from the start is, well, how do I get this set up? How do I put it in my project? How do I do all these other things? I just linked it to, what's it called? I think it's like my billing account is all it's called as. And that can be quite daunting for people because you're like, oh, geez, what's it going to, and I know, Darren, you'll talk about cost of this as well, but there is that to it. I wouldn't go into this thinking like, oh, I've got this amazing thing set up and everything else is going to go with it. And I'll just pause it there. There are these costs to it, but putting it onto Google Cloud like that and just having it set up, it will give you the URL. It's super easy to do. Just follow it through. And if in doubt, ask AI Studio. Ask it. That's how I learned it. And Darren's probably the same because we just went and asked it. And you get this URL that's like a really, weirdly Google/console your name.url, and it will work. That's all I did for the platform I shared with my students for the physics labs. Pushed it out to there, gave the URL, and it worked. And I had 25 kids on at a time, no issues whatsoever. So, and it's not cost me anything to do that. And then when I want to close it down, I can delete it, and then I can go off with it there as well at the same time. So there's options there. And as Chris is saying, like, share it and others can make a copy and develop it in their own way. Yeah, they can also do that because they can copy it down. I think I'll be interested to see how you do that. Like, because when they copy it, I need to have a look whether it goes into their AI Studio or when you copy it, it gets downloaded. But maybe Chris will come back and tell us. But there's another way to do it. And then if you get really comfortable, the GitHub, which is now where I pass the baton over to Darren, because it starts to then get a little bit more, the baton, it starts to then develop a little bit more in terms of comfortable, how competent you are with these things and the types of things that you want to build as well. So Darren, I will send it over to you now.
Alrighty. Let me just, so I mean, what I want to do is just, I mean, obviously we want to stay within the hour. Literally, I could talk for about 5 hours on this, but you all have a life, and I will have my dinner waiting for me and my dog. So otherwise the dog will eat the dinner. So I'm going to show you my workflow, but really, really high level. But I'm going to say that I am going to be recording in the next few weeks, a course, which will go into a lot more depth. But this is just kind of a basic overview, just to kind of say this is the Google Cloud. So this is console.cloud.google.com. This is where all the magic happens with Google. You can do authentication. You can do that. You can set up the hosting, the app, like Alex said. You can do backend, Firebase, all sorts of stuff. I don't use much Google Cloud, really. I use it for authentication, OAuth, as Alex mentioned, so Google authentication, where basically, you can sign into your website using your Google account rather than having to put in an email and password, which everybody does nowadays. But as Alex said, it's actually quite easy to set up. But what I actually wanted to do, let me just quickly find it first. I've already lost it. Oh, there it is. What I actually wanted to do is just kind of talk through my stack. So just sort of go through the sort of things that the sort of things that I'm working on and how I use AI. So essentially, the first thing that you need, if you want to do like grown-up vibe coding, flow coding, sorry, Alex, you're going to want what's called an integrated development environment. Okay, now I use Cursor, but to be honest with you, lots of people use VS Code. I prefer the look of Cursor, but Cursor is what's called a fork of VS Code. I mean, and they're very, very similar. So, some people might. There's a new one that's just arrived called Anti-Gravity, which is the Google version. There's a bunch of them, but I prefer using Cursor. I've used it since the start, and for me, it just works really, really well. So I'm going to be using Cursor, and I'll sort of show you my Cursor setup in a moment. I'm the same as Alex. So I'm using Google Gemini, and I use Gem, and I'll show you in a moment. So basically, in exactly the same way that Alex has done, I've set up a BMAD, and actually BMAD actually stands for a break. Well, there are two. I mean, Alex has thought of a third one, which is so cool. But actually, it stands for Breakthrough Method of Agile AI-Driven Development, or Build More, Architect Dreams, which is quite nice. So that's what BMAD stands for. So I'm using Google Gem. I'm going to create a gem. I'm putting a very, very long prompt, which essentially turns my Google Gem into an agentic workflow, where you're basically being passed from an analyst to a project manager to a UI UX expert to an architect and back to the project manager. And essentially you go through a flow and you end up with what Alex mentioned as a PRD, or a product requirements document. And from there, you're basically then creating a series of epics, which is, I suppose, like a chapter, and stories, which is like a section in the chapter. And so you can imagine that when you're actually building a platform, you're essentially beginning with a set of very detailed instructions. And so this is why this was such a big unlock for me, just a massive, massive unlock, because actually you're able to then take a kind of a rough series of ideas and then just turn them into a series of actions. In terms of my coding partner, yes, I use Claude Code. Most of you who follow me on LinkedIn know that I'm a complete nut on Claude Code. I've tried others. I've tried them all. I've just tried Google Gemini 3, still gone back to Claude Code. Opus 4.5 is phenomenal. It is just so much better, in my opinion, than any other coding tool, but it is expensive, okay? You've got three choices for paying for Claude Code. You can't get Claude Code for free. It doesn't exist. You can either pay about $20 a month for Pro, called Claude Pro. You won't get much use of Claude Code with it because it eats up the tokens. You've then got two Max subscriptions, $100 a month, $200 a month, or £75 a month, and £150 a month. I use it all day, every day, so I pay £150 a month. And you think, oh my goodness, that's really a lot. Not really, when you think that if I was going to be working with developers, it's going to be a lot more expensive than that. So the way I look at it is, this is part of what I do. I'm building apps, and I'm working with schools across the world to develop applications for them. And so, of course, I'm very happy to pay £150 a month because I'm literally using it, and I never, ever run out. I can code all day, which I do sometimes, and I never run out of tokens. Do not, under any circumstances, use buy token buy the token. You've got two choices. You either link it to your own account, or you're basically paying for token usage. You will rack up thousands of dollars worth of bills if you do that. So please don't do that. Either go for the $20 to start, or my suggestion is, if you want to do this properly, $75. And then when you become a complete obsessive like me, you might end up going into more. In terms of my tech stack, now I'm going to go through this quickly, okay? And I'm not going to apologize for that, because I don't want to spend too long hanging around talking about this. But I want to talk to you about, what am I currently using? What I'm building at, and I've spent so much time on this, so much time. So I think I've reached the point where I think I kind of know that this stuff works. Okay, so I know this stuff works. That's why I want to share it with you. In terms of my backend database, okay, now you can use Supabase. I don't use Firebase. I don't use any of the Google. I will either use Railway or I'll use Supabase, but I use Railway more. There are some technical reasons why, which I won't go into. I just find Railway works really well. It's just solid. It's reliable. It just works brilliantly. But Supabase, I started with Supabase, and Supabase is good. There's nothing wrong with Supabase. I just prefer Railway. Now then, what's an ORM? I hear you cry. I'm not going to talk about it too much detail, but it's it's like the interface between your code and your backend, and it's going to organize your backend, and it is an absolute godsend. When I first discovered this tool, I thought, wow, this is literally going to save my life. The reason is, the big danger that you've got when you're coding with AI is that your AI goes into your backend and completely screws everything up. Okay, it just somehow manages to find its way. And there was a story about 6 months ago where some guy literally lost, and this was a proper full-blown SaaS. He literally lost everything because the AI went and just deleted everything. Did like removed the whole back end. What Prisma does is it sits as an intermediary, and it's called object relationship management. So it's basically organizing all of the various tables and the levels and how the tables relate to one another. It's really good. So I use Prisma as my ORM, and that basically, Railway and Prisma work alongside one another. Prisma does also work with Supabase as well, but I really highly recommend, if you want to get properly into working with a backend database, Prisma's absolutely fantastic. For authentication, there are lots of choices. Lots of people use Clark. I actually just use Next. So I tried using Clark. I just didn't get on with it. I just found I'd try and set Clark up, and it would just get itself right inside my code base, and I couldn't get rid of it, and it just was causing me problems. Since I just switched to really simple Next authentication, just works really well. In terms of my vector store, so what's a vector store? Vector store is where you will store information for easy retrieval. Okay, so a vector store, essentially what it does is it breaks your documents into chunks. It assigns a number or a vector to that chunk, and it works like an intelligent search. Just means that if you're uploading lots of documentation to your chatbot, it's not having to look through, like, let's say you upload a whole textbook. It's not having to look through the entire textbook. It's like a super intelligent search. It's almost like the Dewey Decimal System for documents that you upload. There are some choices. Lots of people will use Pinecone. That's kind of the one that most people use. I actually started to use one called Quadrant. I really like it. I find it's a little bit faster. It just seems a bit more intelligent than Pinecone. But again, I'm not really an expert on these. I just find that I'm using Quadrant more than Pinecone. And I haven't spelt that incorrectly. There is no U, so Quadrant or Pinecone, but both work pretty well. In terms of emails, I am using an app called Resend. What I mean is when you first authenticate, it's going to send an email to you, or when you change your password, it's going to send an email. So Resend. All of these, by the way, apart from Claude Code that I mentioned, they all offer a really decent free tier. Okay, there's nothing here that you have to initially pay for. I mean, I might pay $20 a month because I've got several Quadrant databases running. But actually, all the others, you'll get a really good free tier. Railway, Prisma, they'll all give you a good free tier. Now, in terms of who provides my AI, I've actually just started to use this company. The reason is they're based in the EU. But before, and actually, if you're not bothered about things being GDPR compliant, my strong suggestion would be to use OpenRouter because they are really good. What you can do is you can basically link your app up to an AI provider, and it can bring AI into your platform. So if you like want to get started simply, you're not too worried about GDPR, go with OpenRouter. But it's an American company. But if you need your AI to be based in Europe for GDPR compliance purposes, then Scaleway, it has a much smaller range of AI services. So it doesn't have the whole range. OpenRouter has them all, and it's very good at updating them. But Scaleway, it's for me, it's good enough. It's good enough. And so I use Scaleway for that. Other really boring stuff, you know, if I've got it's boring but super important. Any of you who are watching want to do anything beyond just vibing a little simple app for you and your friends to use, you've got to consider the fact that you might have multiple calls on your platform. You might have thousands of current people concurrently wanting to access your APIs, your backend. You need some way of queuing them up, because if you don't, you'll have an overload and the whole thing will lock up. And I worked this out very early on, when I had some testing done, and it just was all falling apart. You've got to have some way of queuing things up. You've also got to have a way of queuing up documents if documents are being uploaded. So I'm using Trigger for that. And what that means is it's called a worker. And essentially, if lots of people all over the world are uploading documents to the back end, there needs to be a way of again, sort of queuing them up as well. So not just queuing the calls to your API, but also queuing the documents that are being uploaded. Finally, security. I'm using, I'll talk a little bit more about this a bit later, but there's a platform called SemGrep, and that just runs security checks on your code. And then error logging and reporting. What am I using for error logging and reporting? I can't remember now. Oh, I'm using Linear. So Linear so you can see here, look, you're thinking, oh my goodness me, that's it. I'm walking away. I don't know why I bothered to even get onto this webinar because it's far too complicated. The reason I want to show this is because this is so much more than vibe coding. You know, this is a full-time job to do this, to understand how all of this stuff interrelates. But if you can understand this, the opportunities are absolutely immense. I mean, you can literally build, like I just showed you, that Edfolio, proper full stack web applications with authentication, with security, you know, all sorts of various acronyms that I won't talk about now, XSS and CSRF and all sorts of stuff, all sorts of good stuff. Just means that you can actually you can build applications that, you know, have a reasonably high level of security. Okay. In terms of workflow, I want to just quickly talk through this now. Just want to spend 5 minutes or so talking about this, and I'm going to go super fast. Very similar to what Alex did. Very, very similar to what Alex did. I'm starting with Google Gemini, and I am using a gem. And my gem is this. I'll show you this, look. It's called BMAD Full Stack. I will, like Alex said, I'm going to share this. I wanted to share it in chat, but for some reason I can't access chat, so I'm not going to be able to. But I'll make sure that you all have access to the GitHub repo, the repository, with this prompt. Because basically, it is a very, 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 very long prompt. This is classic context engineering. That's how long it is. Basically, what this is, it sets up an agentic workflow. Okay, and what you're doing is what it will do is literally pass me, just like Alex showed in the video, passes you from one AI agent to the next. It starts off with an analyst, and in the analyst, you talk through your requirements and you kind of brainstorm, then takes you onto a project manager, and the project manager will flesh out your product requirements document. It then takes you to a UI UX expert who will talk about, well, what do you want it to look like? What's the experience that you want the users to have? And then finally, it goes to a back-end architect who then assembles the architecture, the back-end database and what have you. What will come out of that is a series of stories and epics. And as I said, the epic is like a chapter and the story is like a section in the chapter, and it will literally break it up step by step. I'm just going to quickly show you. I'm going to just go remove this and then just go back to another. Here we are. Look. This is where I struggle with StreamYard a bit, because you can only share one screen at a time. So I've kind of got to go. It's a bit of a fag. There we are. Look. So where are we? So if I just show you one example of how this one. If I just show you one example of how it might look inside of Cursor. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we just said John. Hey, John's a legend.
Blimey.
John,
yeah, that's how we all feel.
Blimey.
That's how we all feel.
Yeah, so but I want to show you this, because I kind of feel like you need to understand just how complicated building proper applications is. So this is an example. Okay, this is a platform I've just started to build. In fact, I haven't even started to build it yet. So this is Cursor. What you're looking at here right now is Cursor, an integrated development environment. On the left, you've got your files. In the middle, you've got your code, and on the right, you've got your AI. Okay. So I go into terminal here. I go new terminal.
We
new
can't.
Terminal.
Your screen's not sharing, by the way.
I knew that. Do you know why? It's because I haven't actually shared the thing yet. There we are.
There we go.
Ah, yeah, me. So there we are. On the left, you've got your files. In the middle, you've got your code, and on the right, you've got your AI. And I literally
I'm going to interject very quickly as you set this up. Darren showed me this like 10, 12 days ago. It was when Guest was on. We were having a comment. No, it was longer than that. It was about two and a half weeks, sorry. And I hadn't been using it previously. And I was equally probably as overwhelmed as what most of you are right now looking at this. However, once you go through it, there's so many YouTube videos. There's so many like courses. Darren's going to
I'm going to create a course as well. So
yeah. And those things, like I promise you, it's actually a lot more intuitive and easy to get started with. It's the same with anything. Just
really
have a go. I would just say
really
just have a go.
So essentially what I've done here is I've opened up Cursor and I have added in, and you can see here, okay, all of the things that I've built, okay, all of the files. You've got the architecture document, you've got the UI UX document, the products requirements document, and then you've got a bunch of epics. And the epics, as I said, like the chapter, and then every single epic has a series of stories. So basically, by the end of this chapter, you need to have AI, you need to have coded all of this, but we're going to break it down. And so now what I would literally do is I would just click on one here. I'd go into Claude Code, and then I will tell Claude to code the one story at a time. Now, I use agents, and again, I'm not going to talk about these agents because that will completely freak you out. But I use what are called sub-agents, which basically work in the background. So one of them will do the coding, and then another one will arrive and will check the code. And then what's quite funny is I'll say to the one it checks, well, the coder really didn't do a very good job, did they? And the agent be like, no. And so I'll say, well, go back and talk to the coding agent and tell them what they did wrong. And so you can almost imagine them having a bit of an argument in the background. But you've literally got these agents who are coding one story at a time. So this one is an example of, as I said, it's a platform I'm about to start building. And you will literally go through, and you can see it is very, very organized. It literally starts the user story. This is what the user wants. This is what success will look like. And then it will go through step by step. AI codes all of this, by the way. You don't write this stuff. You're probably thinking, oh my God, I can't possibly write that. You don't have to, because AI does it for you as part of the workflow. What you're doing is you're working in the left here, and you're getting it to code, you're getting it to check, and then you're committing it to GitHub. And so what you would then...
I would say the other thing to note is AI will not set your file structure up like that for you either. Like
no.
if I was to show you my cursor, Darren, you would have an absolute heart attack, because the one thing
OCD though. My thing is, I am really OCD. I just am. I can't.
But it's really worthwhile for this, because one of the things, and you'll attest to, is that when you're working in Claude in Cursor, if you have a file you can take it to, it will work within that parameter. It will work on that file, and Claude especially. And you'll see it in the bottom right-hand corner. It said, like, it might say stories epic 1. And then it's working in there, and you can see what it's doing to it. Like otherwise you're going to waste so many tokens with it searching and looking for something. It actually pays dividends to be really, really organized.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think the token thing is really important to talk about, because AI coding eats tokens. The reason is you're pulling so much context into the chat at the beginning of a chat, huge amounts of context, because it's actually pulling through large amounts of code to actually then, you know, work out what to do next. And so actually you need to get this stuff organized. And if you separate your workflow up very, very precisely, as I've done, actually what it will do is that the agent will only work on that little bit of code at a time, which hugely reduces. Probably why, even though I think if I was, even though I'm paying 150 sort of pounds a month, even if I was paying 75, I still probably think I'd be able to code for most of the day, because I'm able to use the AI super efficiently. And that's kind of it, really. I mean, you know, what's happening here is I'm kind of, you know, beginning a story and just coding one story at a time, you know. And I might start with a prompt like this. You know, we're going to build this web application. I'll talk about the different, you know, aspects of the web application that I'm building, the language that I'm building in, which is Next.js, the components that I'm building, you know, the style components that I'm building, and so on and so forth. So I'm actually giving it quite a lot of context at the beginning, because what that does is it then is enabling me to actually, like Alex did, very similar to what Alex did there with AI Studio, in that he puts in one very short prompt and it gives him an okay out, but as soon as he puts in a lot more context, he's getting a much better response. And then the last thing to talk about, and again, just really super briefly, just to talk about GitHub. And Alex mentioned about GitHub. GitHub is where you store your code. Okay, that's it. It's what's called a repository or repo. And then from the place that it's stored, you can then deploy it online. And I use Versal. Some people use Cloudflare. Some people use Netlify. So there are a bunch of them. I just prefer Versal. I find it quite solid. Again, I'm not paying for it, and I'm not paying for GitHub either. So essentially what I'm doing with Claude Code here on the left is I'm setting up Claude Code in my, are you seeing my screen? Yes,
yeah, we got you.
I'm so paranoid now. I'm setting up Claude Code, and I'm literally coding one story at a time. A story implementer does the code, a QA validator validates the code, and it's very regimented. It's actually quite boring. I mean, there's, you know, vibing is not like, oh, go with the flow. It's actually quite boring, because I'm literally just kind of going through one story at a time, really methodically. You know, story, the implementer writes the code, the validator checks the code, you commit the code, so on and so forth. The last thing to say then is about GitHub. GitHub is, as I said, just a place to store your code. Every time you've done a story, you push the code. You know, literally, it's like a conveyor belt. AI writes the code, AI checks the code, you push the code. AI writes the code, AI checks the code, you push the code, you merge the code. It's literally, it's like building blocks. It's literally like building blocks. It's like bricks. You're building one brick onto the other. If you do that, you can do some really remarkable things. So look, it is complicated. I wanted to show you just how much is involved, because I think it's really important to say that this is kind of grown-up stuff, but the only way you're going to be able to code production grade applications is if you follow something that rigorous.
Yeah, I think when we spoke about it, we said, look, we want to show you what people can do right now, and then what people can aspire to do. And that was kind of the theme for this, in that loads of people, when you saw mine, we're talking about, it's like, yeah, AI Studio, Canva, it's like, we can do this. How do we take it a step further? How do we make what we're doing within AI Studio better? And I think if you take BMAD and even the light version and start with that, then that will make what you produce in AI Studio better. However, if then you become slightly addicted, slightly curious, and want to do better things,
mad, slightly mental,
yeah, well, then what you've just seen, I think, is what you can aspire to. And I'll testament to that, really, because within the last 3 months, I suppose, I mean, we've spoke quite regularly, haven't we, Darren? And it's like, you do get into it because you want to do more, you want to learn more. And I think that's been the premise for this evening, is to show you just what you can do. Yeah. With a bit of time, with a bit of structure, and a lot of patience. Like, there's no jokes around that. But it's super accessible now. But it's a discipline game, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it is. And I'm not actually by nature a disciplined person. I'm a kind of slightly off the wall English teacher. And I've never been. I mean, if you look at I mean, this all looks really organized. Everything else is chaos. Just this small window of order. Everything else is completely mad.
Same. This is the same here.
Yeah. It's the same. At least I don't have a dog chewing my feet anymore because she's gone back downstairs. But yeah, you're absolutely right. All discipline, all order. Right. We've got 5 minutes. If anyone's put any comments, any questions right now, what I'll do is I'll put them up on the screen, and we'll do our best to answer them. So has anyone got anything burning that they would like us maybe to repeat or just question or challenge? Really super happy to put anything up on. So just write your comments, write your questions. This is your opportunity to ask away. AMA, AUA, ask us anything.
Within reason. Like if anyone like this, just in case, like this is a Movember thing. Darren's already like spoken with me about this in terms of Movember moustache.
Yeah, so you can't ask him about his moustache. Okay, here we are. Look, yeah, nice one. Okay, Hamza, really good question. The answer is actually no, not really. I mean, I've got a MacBook Pro, but it's not like a top end machine. I would say you need a reasonably fast processor, but you're working actually with stuff which is largely kind of working in the cloud. You know, so Claude you're pulling in and you're working with a code base. Your code base itself is actually is not particularly heavy. So I don't think you need any massively heavy. I mean, I find my Mac, I've got an M3 MacBook Pro, but it's not the top end one, and it works absolutely fine.
Yeah, same. I have a Mac Mini that sits on mine.
Okay,
so.
Right, here we are, Alex. So Jackie, I know you're making a course. Where would be a good place to get started? My suggestion again would be to start with AI Studio. I think it's a really good place to start. But then I would probably simply and what I will do is I might even pop it into the chat for this, because for some reason I can't put any comments. I don't know why.
It needs to be LinkedIn based. I realize that, but then you're doubling up on the sound. We'll do it afterwards because it stays open for a while afterwards. But like Darren said, AI Studio, ask the AI. Like if you're struggling, go and ask the AI. And the other one is YouTube. You will be amazed as good starters, as a starting point, should I say, like Claude Code, Cursor. Some of them are really complex, and you'll be like, what? And that's why you're better off going into Gemini or into any of those and asking it simple questions. Go into Claude and ask it, like, I want to do this. What do I need to do? The output is generally pretty good, and then you can figure the rest out.
I mean, I think in terms of where to start for what I'm doing, I mean, it's a bit of a leap of faith, because basically what you're doing is you're downloading Cursor. And then my suggestion would be this: download Cursor, have AI Studio open beside you, and literally just say what you want. You know, I've just downloaded Cursor, but I want to get started with coding inside an integrated development environment. How do I start? What do I do? And actually, and that's how I work. I mean, literally, AI Studio pretty much taught me everything I know. But what I will do, though, is in the chat for this event, for this webinar, I will put my tech stack in. I will put I'll put the links to BMAD. I'll put the links to Claude Code to get started. So I'll put a bunch of links into the chat, and then you can just access them. So basically, the post that got you into this event, I'll put the prompts all under all the information all under there. And then finally, let me just think. Here we are. Look, so here, yeah. Can we say we've got here? Look, can we see text? Yeah, I'll make sure that's linked. Will the course start with the basic? Yes. I mean, it will be literally as if you know nothing. So my course will start from, but it will be Claude Code IDE based. I'm not going to go through. So it's for people who kind of want to do the more sort of slightly more advanced stuff. So you're about you both are great, but your mentors. No, we don't have. Well, actually, my mentor was AI Studio.
Darren was mine.
And
that's why you were the Obi-Wan.
Thanks, Skyward. Okay. And Any others? Okay, well, last one then.
CTO.
Okay, do you recommend having LLM CTO that's guiding you through the process too? I didn't. Look, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I just don't have anyone. Oh, you mean a large language model CTO? Well, that's quite a good idea, actually. What you mean, create an agent, like a CTO agent? I quite like that. I might have to play with that later. Yeah, so I mean, if you want to create your own CTO large language models, that's actually a really cool idea.
It'd be really useful, actually, that wouldn't it? Like that controlling officer who's able to kind of. There are certain things like with your sub agents. I imagine you have something similar, but yeah, that is a really good idea.
But I mean, yeah. So it will be, of course, will be super simple. Well, I mean, it will get progressively more complicated, but it will start simple, and it will take you step by step through basically to building a project. So the course itself, and then the plan is that I build little bolt-on courses for building X and building Y. You know, so how to build such and such, and how to build whatever. But I'm quite keen, obviously, to take ideas if people want to be shown how to build certain things, then we could potentially build those into courses as well. So I think that's it. Thank you to John. Thank you to Katia. Thank Federico and Hamza and Peter and Priya and John and Jackie and
all of
Connell
you, everyone.
We thank people really, and Chris, really appreciate you all joining. And this will be available. The recording will be available. How long afterwards is it available, Alex? Do you know?
You can get it straight away.
So you can get this available on LinkedIn straight away.
You can get this straight away. I will publish it across on YouTube as well.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, we can go from there. We'll have all bases covered. And as most of you probably already are connected with us, if you do have any follow-up questions, any comments, obviously the chat stays open within this platform, on LinkedIn for this event. And then you can reach out to us, tag us in anything as well. And we can do our best to support from there as well. Brilliant. Well, look, and then the last thing to say is I think we might make this regular. And show us your stack. Yeah, we thought it would be quite cool because we know we've got some guys who are like Matthew's doing some quite cool stuff as well, and Kunal as well. So what we might do is, and I think you guys are on. Oh yeah, Kunal said I think I saw Matthew coming in earlier on as well. So I think we might reach out to you chaps and chapesses and see whether we can get a regular slot where you can come on and show us your stack. That would be great. That'd be amazing. Right. I'm going to sign off. It is 9 o'clock here in the evening. Thank you again ever so much to everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the week. Take care, everyone. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.